Hey there, it's Dr. Deb. Okay, I'm going to wait a second or maybe a whole minute for people to get on. Wow, it's bright out and it looks like I'm all washed out with no color. Let's see. It's a little better. Okay, people are joining. Yay. Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Deb. It is Thursday. It is 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and that is why I'm speaking. The first thing I want you to know, please, 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 is to interrupt. I want to see chat messages so that I know that what I'm saying to you makes sense, or you don't like it and you need to share why, or you do like it and you need to share why, or questions, or your examples, or anything. I need to hear from you. Otherwise, as I always say, I'm talking to the wall, the computer screen, and it's just no fun. So if you're there, and I know there are people there because that's what this thing is telling me, just say hi or something. Say something, please. All right, the first thing I want to do is find my notes. Right. Okay, let me share with you something really important. I have had my PhD for about 20 years, a little over 20 years. Yay, somebody, glad to be here. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. Great. Hi. Hi. Oh, thank you all for talking to me. I really appreciate it. Okay. So, when I was working on my dissertation, I had this flash of awareness, a light bulb went off, which now is understood. It's common. It's totally yeah. It's totally understood that there's such a thing as trauma. But back 20 years ago and 30 years ago, when I first started my grad program and I spent 10 years working on the dissertation, it wasn't. It wasn't. And this bright light bulb was saying that when a person has suffered abuse or neglect, which is abuse, or even overly spoiling, which is abuse too. And I've talked about this in other videos, and I'm not going to spend much time on it. But anything that is abusive is going to be traumatic. Now, when you add the concept of moving a lot, a kid divorcing, someone dying, a parent being sick in the hospital, a parent being cold, a parent being a kind of critical, negative, not really abusive, but just not, or even I've uncovered this, parents who are afraid of their own emotions, so their kids can't have any of that can be traumatic for a child growing up. Now, what does that mean in terms of who you are? I mean, we're all fine. We're handling things. We have our careers. We're making money. We're not on the street sitting on a piece of cardboard. So, what's the problem? The problem is that when we have suffered as kids, two not helpful things happen. The first thing that's not helpful, but our system can only do what it can do, and we're a kid, right? The first not helpful thing that happens is these protectors come up to take care of us. We are born with a self. In fact, I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, that when someone dies, if you weigh them, like just before they die and after they die, they weigh less, and the air in their lungs is not sufficient to account for it. Got to have some water. So the concept of a soul might be tangible and real. I don't know. I believe in it. And Dr. Schwartz, the founder of Internal Family Systems, believes in it. And many spiritual practices believe in it. Why? Because we're saying, and I love the fact that I can lean on somebody who is well known in the therapy community, Dr. Richard Schwartz. Let me show you his famous book. And I've written about it a lot. So you can go through the posts. You can do a search on the Facebook group, or you can do a search on my blog, on my website, drdeb.com, and you'll see all my other posts on that. But they say like this: we were born with a real soul which has wisdom. That is the topic of today's talk. It has many amazing qualities. It has clarity. It has perspective. It can get the big picture. When you're mired in a problem, it's not so nervous because it could see the end. It sees the big picture, so it sees where things are going. That's wisdom, and that's within us. Now, I discovered Dr. Schwartz and IFS, Internal Family Systems, because as I started to realize that we have suffered trauma, if we've experienced any kind of abuse or neglect or smothering or, doing too much for a kid, spoiling them, or any of the other things that could be traumatic. I discovered it because I was reading this amazing book, and I've talked about this too, by Basil van der Kolk. And I want to read you, and I have to change glasses, just like Superman changed his clothes. Here we go. I want to read you what Dr. van der Kolk says about Dr. Schwartz. He says Schwartz makes two assertions that extend the concept of mindfulness. The first is the self doesn't need to be cultivated or developed. Beneath the surface of the protective parts of trauma survivors, there exists an undamaged essence, a self that is confident, curious, and calm, a self that has been sheltered from destruction by the various protectors that have emerged in their efforts to ensure survival. And the second assumption is that rather than being a passive observer, this mindful self can help reorganize our inner system and communicate with the parts in ways that help those parts learn to trust the self, that there is someone in there that can handle life. So that was my journey to understanding what I'm going to talk about now, that there is a self, but it is buried. It is buried in almost all cases because of trauma and abuse. There are families that are very nurturing and haven't experienced trauma and haven't experienced any of the things I've mentioned as being traumatic. And so in those families, maybe the protectors aren't as many, and maybe the self does come out, and maybe the self comes out quite a bit. So the degree to which the self is hidden versus sometimes out there depends on your family history. It's not anyone's fault if it's hidden. Just to make that clear. However, I am speaking to a crowd of people who probably have had a lot of pain in their life and in their marriage as well. And the self had to go underground. a lot of people, for example, in marriage will say to me, I don't know who I am anymore, right? Because you're busy dodging the balls, the bombs. It's not stepping on the landmines. You watch what you're saying, you watch what you do, you keep maybe your money private because you don't want something messed up with it. There's all kinds of things people have to do in marriage that lose themselves. And someone is saying, child, and I never repeat names. By the way, for all the other people on the call who wish to participate and are afraid, I never repeat names, although your name will appear in the comments. The whole thing is private right now, but it will, I guess, go public later on when I've got my whole channel ready to go. Childhood trauma constructs, builds who we are. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. 20 years ago, we knew or thought nothing about even considering trauma. Yeah, yeah. So, and this is not like because I just came up with this thing. I was just lucky that I was doing tons and tons and tons of reading to supplement all the interviews I did for my research. And this is how I kind of got here. But now the question is, okay, what do we do about all these protectors, which I have talked about in other videos? Again, they're not here necessarily. They would probably be on my website, which is drdeb.com/love yourself, love your marriage. Same title as my Facebook channel, same title as the group YouTube channel and the group in Facebook, Love Yourself, Love Your Marriage, with a dash in between. And the last word is library. Love Yourself, Love Your Marriage library. If I get a chance at the end, I'll type in that link. So you want to watch other IFS videos that I have done, you'll see that there. But now we're stuck with a situation where we needed to develop protectors as kids. Where's our self? Where's our self? It's hidden. It doesn't mean it's damaged. And it doesn't mean we need reparenting. There's a whole kind of therapy. I don't know if it's always part of cognitive behavioral, but there's a kind of therapy that says, oh, a poor unfortunate person suffered abuse and they don't even know how to operate in this world. They're like so out of it, so far removed, they don't even know how to like brush their teeth. I'm giving an extreme example. Or they don't know how to do social skills well enough to hold down a job or whatever. Dr. Schwartz and Dr. Vanderkolk say nonsense. That is not true. Your self is in there. It has always been in there because you're born with it. And all we need to do is uncover it. So now what I want to do first is ask if anybody on has questions. And second, I want to actually take you through the exercise of uncovering yourself, which you probably have experienced many times. You just didn't realize it. But first, any questions about what I've said? Or shall I go on? Tell me if I should go on. There's a lot of people on here. Come on, talk to me. Okay, I'll go on. Oh, here, somebody's saying yes. Okay, great. Thank you. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is recognize that any feelings you have that are agenda driven, which some other person would say, oh, you're stuck in a mood, or you're just acting badly in some way, those are protectors, which again are protectors I've talked about a lot before, but they could be anger, A protector could be moodiness, feeling like a victim, feeling hopeless. You might say, why would hopelessness be a protector? It works. It works because as a small child, a person, a tiny child who feels hopeless, goes in a corner, takes the blanket, sucks his thumb, and he comforts himself. So he at least gets comfort from himself. That's a protector. Even a suicidal feeling is a protector because it's taking you out of pain, or at least that protector thinks it's taking you out of pain. We really don't know, but the point is, I guess it does. So it's a protector. So any of these things, even a person who's logical and calm could still not be in self if their mind is focused on an agenda and they're not listening and they're not taking in what you're saying. We call that a self-like part because it seems to be self-like in the sense of smiling, pleasant, friendly, listening, logical, but not really listening, pretending to listen, but meanwhile in their mind, they're just trying to absorb the concepts they need to argue with. They're not actually seeing where the other person's coming from. So any of those are protectors, just to give you an idea of where we're going. So in order for you to experience your inner wisdom, I want you to take a breath and close your eyes. I hope you don't have distractions. Turn off your phone for a minute and just breathe. And now I want you to notice what feeling you have. Do you feel hopeless, depressed, angry, frustrated, taken advantage of? Any of these non-self feelings, and we all have many of them. I want you to imagine that you could remove the feeling from inside of you and lovingly, not with venom, lovingly have it take a seat right across from you, just a few feet away, so that you're having like a conversation in your living room with a part. And now the question is, how do you feel toward that part? Let's say that part was angry. How do you feel toward that part? If you feel frustrated with the part for being angry, that's another part. Frustration is not yourself, and it's not wise. It's just frustrated. Ask that part also to take a seat just across from you, a few feet away, not far, lovingly, because every part has been there to help us. And now, how do you feel toward that frustrated part? And if you say sad, or whatever other emotions come up, ask that part to take a seat. And I'm going to give you a minute for asking all your parts. There may be 30, there may be 5. I don't know. There may be 2. I don't know. But asking all your parts to take a seat across from you so that you are left in self energy. And the way to know for sure is to check in with yourself how you feel toward all the parts. Because any feelings that seem to be negative or defensive or like a pretend self are parts. So you want to have every one of them sit down. And you notice I close my eyes because that's how I get to focus inside when I'm walking you through it. Now, assuming every single one of these non-self parts are all sitting down. Yes, it is. Loneliness is a part. And I think that is a fantastic question. And I'll tell you why it's a part. As we're working on today, getting to know our real, true self, our inner wisdom is thrilled to be with yourself. My husband died 7 years ago. Do I miss him? Obviously. But am I lonely? No. I live alone. I don't talk to anybody all week long except you guys, all the clients I work with, but not friends necessarily because I'm busy working, right? I do see my family on the weekend. I have children, but I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely because I have myself. So thank you for that great question. Anybody else with questions? Love it. So when you're all done and every part is lovingly seated around you, what you should be feeling inside is a sense of peace, expansiveness, like you can breathe because all these parts are not cramping your style, a sense of curiosity about why each one is there, what purpose inside of you they serve, a sense of compassion for yourself that you had to go through all that to get there, a sense of joy and gratitude that you got there, you're alive and kicking, and you do have a self with wisdom that we're now trying to access. If there's some other feeling that comes up, that's another part. Just ask it lovingly to sit aside so you can feel that special energy of self. Now, what about the wisdom? Very important. You can enjoy self by breathing slowly. And a thought might come to you that's a brilliant solution to a problem you've been having that you never got a solution to before. When you're in self energy, your mind is cleared from all the noise and chatter so that you can access your wisdom. Let's take another minute to just see how that goes. I would like to have feedback from every person on the call on how it went for them. Were there parts that still got in the way? Was their brain too full of chatter? What was it like? I just want to know how it worked. And the solution is to keep practicing. Now, there's an obstacle that always comes up for people, which is They may be mad or whatever they are, lonely, like you said, and they say, no, that's who I am. That's me. No, it's not. It's not who you are. Your true self with wisdom is who you are. How hard to clear all the clutter and keep the parts straight. So one thing you can do to keep the parts straight, now that you're starting to recognize them, is take a piece of paper and draw them out. Did you notice the stick figure on the thumbnail that I created for YouTube? Well, you can draw out faces, emojis, with bodies, without bodies, stick bodies, whatever, to represent all your parts. You can even draw them in color to represent how they seem to you, their personalities inside you. And then you get to recognize. For example, let's say there's one part that chatters, like you have a stream of thoughts, almost like OCD, and you can't stop. Very common. Why would that be a protector? Anybody have a guess? Well, it's keeping you from thinking about stuff that it doesn't want you to think about, which might be painful or scary. See? So every single one of these parts means well and is trying to protect you. And you have to let the part know that you're there. There's a self there. These parts may not have ever realized that there is a self there underneath them, because they've been working so hard for you. They are your automatic go-to responses that you don't even think about, whether it's loneliness or moodiness or anger or whatever. Feeling always right, whatever, all these different possible reactions to life, all parts. Anybody else, please share how you're doing. How is this going? If you keep practicing this, it will get easier. And if you need help from me to do it, that's what my coaching program is all about. And you should definitely check out my coaching program. Just go to my website. Is it on the page? I believe it's on the front page on the menu. You can check it out. No one else wants to comment. Everyone's shy. It's okay. It's okay. I thank those who did comment. I love to hear more. You can write me at drdeb@drdeb.com with no dots. There's no doctor dot thing. It's just Dr. Deb. All righty? You take care, everyone.